What's up, guys? Welcome back to Storytime with Uncle John, where I collect stories from Tales from Tech Support and malicious clients from around the web and Reddit. Air conditioner's cranking hard today. Hopefully I can filter some of that noise out. If not, we'll do the best we can. Anyway, today's stories are from Tales from Tech Support. Figured I'd finish out the week with something strong that everybody seems to like. And then me and the auntie are going away tonight for a couple days and just kind of chilling. So hopefully we'll be back with a Monday episode. If it is, it'll probably be a little bit late, but that's okay. You guys seem to pick up on it, whether it's a, upload in the morning, evening, or, afternoon. So appreciate it. And let's do some stories. Just put some salt in it. Okay, I lied. It's Malicious Compliance. I'm an idiot. Okay. Just put some salt in it. When I was young, think 5 or 6 years old, my parents had a don't leave the table unless you've eaten all your food rule. I was picky and I hated tomatoes. My mom would often make the rest of the family grilled cheese and tomato soup, but I would get chicken noodle. On this day, there was no chicken noodle, so I got canned tomato soup. I told my mom before she served that I only wanted the grilled cheese. Honestly, a sandwich and a bowl of soup was too much for my tiny body anyway. She gave me both anyway. I moaned and groaned about how gross the soup was for a while. My mom told me not to get up until I finished my food, so I stayed at the table. An hour later, my mom walked in and finds me still at the table. She asked why I was still there, and I reminded her that I wasn't allowed up until I eat, and I didn't like the soup. She told me, just put some salt in it. Well, I was young. I didn't know the difference between salt and sugar, so I made an educated guess. My mom put a bit of the stuff in the white bowl into my cereal in the morning to make it taste better. That must be salt. I poured several teaspoons of salt into my soup. It was still gross. Okay, it must be the other one. I kept adding salt and tasting until the shaker ran out. The soup was even more gross. Gee, I wonder why. My mom came back in after another hour and again asked why I'm still there. I said, well, I tried adding salt. It didn't help. After 2 hours of refusing to eat the soup, my mom finally excused me. As I was leaving the kitchen, my mom shrieks and asked what I put in the soup and what was all this goop at the bottom of the bowl. I just told her, you said put some salt in it. I understand having kids that are picky eaters, whether it's my own kids, my nieces and nephews, daycare kids, whatever. And, sometimes you got to pick your battles. If they like at least half of the equation, the sandwich but not the soup, I'm not going to push too hard on that. If they refuse to eat any of it because, whatever, they want cereal all the time, I'm not the type of parent who's going to give in and just feed them, their favorite cracker or their favorite cereal every stinking meal. There will be a few occasions when I give in and, will relent. But it's a special occasion, and I let them know that, most of the time our kids are pretty good. They go through phases, but, like my grandson, he's going through a weird phase right now, but he still eats most of his stuff, including vegetables. So can't be too mad about that. I must take the full time to complete a task or I get penalized? Okay, free social media time. For the longest time, my job has allowed us to take the full pay for completing work, even if we finish early. For context, I'm assigned a zone, and I complete all jobs assigned to me in that zone by a time limit, at many different locations. I check in via GPS tracker to prove I'm at the location. They pay me mileage, and I make my own schedule. Each job has a time assigned to it. Previously, they've always allowed us to claim the extra time. If I'm given an hour to complete something and finish in 45 minutes, I claim the hour. Our managers have always said this is fine, saying if we're turning in good work and we're skilled enough to complete it faster than most, we shouldn't be paid less for it. All enforcing that would do is encourage people to work slow as possible or waste time. And it does. Now they say we need to use the full allotted time or take the cut in our check. One big problem is we're given way too much time. It's common for me to be given an hour to do something that takes 10 minutes tops. My colleagues are not ashamed to admit they all run the clock. Thinking it's BS, they shouldn't be paid less than people who don't know what they're doing and stand around doing nothing. So they do it too. I started doing it too. I've been doing this for 6 years. I can do the work assigned to me in a quarter of the time they expect. Doesn't mean I deserve to make 25% the money I should make for doing the same work. Now I do whatever on the clock. Go grocery shopping, go get lunch, take a nap, read a book, gossip, whatever. I don't know if our new management will realize the policy is stupid and that it was never enforced for a reason and literally cannot be enforced, but until then, they'll be paying the whole district to run the clock. I understand that you want employees to, you want the best bang for your buck. I get it. And you don't necessarily want to pay them for standing around. So basically, the job, I don't know. it sounds like OP is being treated like a subcontractor here. So, honestly, the job is the job. If it's done correctly or above and beyond or whatever in a shorter amount of time, you shouldn't be penalized for that. If you're paid by the hour, well, then, if you do it really quickly, then you got to find something else productive for the company to fill that time. But, something about this setup is weird, and they are encouraging people to just run out the clock and, twiddle their thumbs, play on their phones, whatever. And, me personally, if I was some kind of management, I would reevaluate the time allotment that I'm giving everybody. If Joe Blow is taking an hour and you're taking 10 to 15, even 20 minutes, let's say a half hour, you're doing it in half the time, then I would reevaluate, okay, either I'm allotting too much time and the hour-long guy is not as skilled as you are and maybe needs a little more training, or maybe you need to replace him, or I don't know, or make sure you're not taking shortcuts, which, maybe you are, maybe you aren't. But something needs to be reevaluated there so that, the company's getting their money's worth and the other people aren't getting screwed. So, oh boy. You want me to be more socially active? Got it. I'm from an Asian country, and I've been living in a foreign country for some time and purchased my home here a few years ago. My hobby is to play computer games and watch TV shows, and I've spent a decent amount of money to set up my home for it. I had the fastest internet plan, subscription to all major streaming services, etc. My daily life is work, grocery shopping, home gaming, every single day. My parents came at the beginning of the year to live with me as they want to experience the foreign life. They were disappointed when they found out their son doesn't have an active social life here and spends all his free time at home gaming. They tried to make me more socially active by telling me what events are happening that I can go to and how they've been going out every day and made lots of new friends. Well, not really. I know they only go to 2 places. The shopping center for grocery, or the local community center where there are a bunch of retired people from our home country. My parents don't speak English. I don't even think they know how to use the public transport here. Telling me to go outside and socialize has become the topic of our dinner talk every night, and the tension, especially between me and my dad, has become more and more hostile. One night when they mentioned it again, I decided I've had enough. So I started to become more socially active by staying at the internet cafe until 11:30 p.m. every day. I also canceled the internet at home. Ouch. They found out the internet wasn't working at home and notified me. I acknowledged it. They asked me, when's the internet coming back? I said it's not coming back. What? Why? Because I'm socializing every day. When I come home, I go to bed right away. When I wake up, I either go to work or go out socializing. I barely use internet at home, so why do I need it? 2 weeks later, Mom tells me they're going back home. My adult kids are my adult kids. They're adults. They're going to do what they want to do. And that's how it should be. I'm not going to run their life for them. Now, I'm not saying I'll never mention something that's my opinion. I mean, Lord knows we're all entitled, and my kids give their opinions enough, so, I'm going to give mine. They can take it for what it's worth. You either agree with it or you don't. You'll either try something or you won't. It's all good. But to keep harping on something is just useless. All it does is create, animosity between you and, ruins a relationship that, may or may not have been good anyway. But I'll also say this, if you have family coming in from out of the area to visit you, to sit around and play computer games while you're not working or grocery shopping, instead of attending to your guests, that seems a little weird to me too. So, anyway, what do I know? Please save your questions for later so you get credit for them. Or do as you want, I guess. Disclaimer, non-native speaker. If you spot a mistake, please put it under the designated OP comment to keep the comments organized. Thank you. Setup. This happened while I was in middle school at a certain math tournament called Math Battle. To tell the story, I need to first explain the rules. I'll try to do this as briefly as possible. The rules are similar to other math tournaments, with 2 main features. First, it's a team competition, and every battle goes between 2 teams. Second, every solution has to be presented by a speaker and refuted by an opponent from the other team. To get points as a speaker, you present your solution. To get them as an opponent, you refute the correctness of the speaker's points by spotting mistakes in their solution and getting points for these mistakes instead of the speaker. When the speaker is done presenting, they have to say, "Presentation over." This is to avoid any confusion and interruption from the opponent, as any mistakes noted before these words can be spotted by the speaker and fixed on the spot, thus giving no points to the opponent. Overall, the point distribution is managed by the judge. So here's the story. As this is a team competition, there are rules that prohibit players from being in the same role more than twice. Because of this, our captain decided to delegate presentation of the extra problem they solved to me. They explained the solution to me. I got about half of that, and sent me on my way to the blackboard. In this state, the solution barely holds, and the opponent sees that. When I start making mistakes, they interrupt my presentation to point that out. As I'm aware of the rules, I try to notify them. Please save your questions for after the presentation is over. This helps a bit, though only a bit. The second I misplace a digit, I hear another correction. Please save your questions for after the presentation is over. At one point, it becomes really irritating, as it's hard to present a solution when you barely understand it, and there's someone constantly noticing the mistakes. When I'm almost done presenting the solution, now as full of holes as Swiss cheese, I take about 3 seconds to catch my breath and try to say, "Presentation over," when at that perfect moment, when I open my mouth, they interrupt me again. Cue malicious compliance. Instead of finishing what I tried to say, separating the section when speaker gets points from the section when the opponent gets points, I decide to stand back and watch. The opponent obliterates my solution, telling why it doesn't work and the way it should have been solved. Instead of arguing, I simply say, "You're right, that's how you're supposed to do it, thank you." And when they're done, they indicate the end of their rebuttal by saying, "I agree with the solution to the problem after corrections made." At which point I interrupt them. "Oh yeah, presentation over, you may ask your questions now." Not getting what I was implying, the opponent finished their rebuttal and returned to their team. Now is the time the judge distributes the points. Judge says, "Okay, the corrections made by the opposition are significant, thus worth," and then I interrupted him saying, "I'm sorry, but all the corrections from opposition were made during the presentation." There's a brief silence in the room. Judge says, "Oh, you're right. All points go to the speaker." The most precious moments were when we heard the captain of the other team scolding my opponent for their impatience. We won that battle. Sadly, not thanks to that maneuver though. That was the highlight of the game. I'm not horrible at math, but I'm pretty sure I could never enter a competition. Anyway, while it seems almost unfair on the surface for the team that made the mistakes to get all the points, I understand why they do the point system this way, because people interrupting you and formulating what they're going to say as a rebuttal in any conversation, competition, whatever, it's rude, it interrupts the flow of things, and they just need to be patient, stand back, follow the rules or the common courtesies as they were, and, hey, you screw up, you get penalized. So he was going to get penalized, but you couldn't be patient enough to hold your water until after he said presentation over, so you get what you get. I hate having conversations where when I'm making a point, I can tell somebody's not listening, they're taking a breath as if they're about to speak, because they already have a rebuttal. They're not listening to what I have to say at all, and it drives me absolutely bonkers. I'm not saying you shouldn't have your say, your opinion, your reply, whatever, but at least wait until I'm done. Sheesh. I want it like this. I'm the boss. You do it how I say. Sure. Context. I work in flooring installation. Commercial mostly. Usually carpet or vinyl tiles. I've been doing this for 10 years now. I got a work order to do a head office for a large developer. It was carpet tile, but with a pattern and lines and a border. I start installing, and just as I get the first tiles out after laying the glue, the big boss comes out. He says I'm doing it wrong. I was absolutely stunned. I looked at him, looked back at the tiles I had just put down, looked at him again and asked, "What?" "Those numbers on the back of the tiles are the sequence order. You need to follow the numbers," he replied. What is he talking about? What he's talking about is God knows what. Part numbers, serial numbers, lot numbers? They have nothing to do with installation, so if I actually followed whatever he was saying, it would look like a mess, not the intended pattern. I tried explaining this to him, but he wouldn't have it. He got frustrated and called the head office, who in turn called me and said to just do it how he wants it. So I did. As I'm finishing up, he comes back, takes one look at it and says, "I don't like it." I smiled and said, "I don't care. That's how you wanted it." I packed my stuff up and left. He didn't say another word to me. A few days later, I hear that he called the head office asking for someone else to come redo it in the way I had originally intended to install it. So the office sent me again, and I got paid to remove the work that I had just got paid to install, so I can get paid to install it again. Needless to say that he didn't come out to make small talk the second time. I've had clients. They weren't my clients. I was working for somebody else as an installer, whether it was installing trim, hanging doors, putting in windows, whatever, doing trim work, finish work, railings, you name it. And they'll start to complain right away. It's exactly what the specs call for. It's exactly what the blueprints call for. It's exactly what they signed off on in the design. And then they want to stand there and bitch and complain because now all of a sudden they don't like it. Well, I stop doing what I'm doing when somebody starts that mess. And I tell them, okay, you're going to have to contact the main office because this is going to be a change order. What do you mean it's going to be a change order? I said, well, you want to change the materials, then we have to take the hit on what we've already used up. We have to take the hit on the return, restocking fees. Then we have to wait for the new materials to come in. Plus you have extra labor because I've already done X amount of work. Then I have to take it all apart. Then I have to pack everything up, yada, yada, yada. So you get the idea. And they can't stand that. They think it should just be for free or the same price at the very least, not, no additional charges. And that to me is just insane. I mean, who thinks that way? If you don't eat the veggies, you don't eat. Okay. Not sure this really counts as malicious compliance, but I figured it's at least worth a somewhat horrified laugh. When I was maybe 4, my brother, 6ish at the time, and I were dropped off at our aunt's house for the weekend. Mom and Dad dropped us off Friday afternoon after lunch, with plans to pick us up Sunday night after dinner and take us straight home to bed. We loved these sleepover weekends because Aunt had game consoles, board games, a massive playground in the condo complex, a huge pool, and best of all, bunk beds. Friday night, my brother and I discovered that Aunt requires her kids, don't remember their ages, but female was probably about 5 years older than me at the time, and male was only a couple years younger than her, to eat a full bowl of veggies before they're allowed to the main course. Friday night was a bowl of green beans, unseasoned, bland, steamed, soggy green beans, before spaghetti and meatballs and chocolate cake. I hated veggies by themselves and refused to eat the green beans. I refused them at dinner. I refused them at breakfast. I refused them at every single meal all weekend until my parents showed up to pick us up to find me vomiting water because that's all she'd let me have. Now, my parents would often save uneaten refused veggie food for the next meal, but if we refused it 2 meals in a row, the next meal would be different. Aunt refusing to feed me for over 48 hours was completely unacceptable, and my parents never let us stay at her house without them ever again. Bonus: a few weeks later, my mom made green beans, seasoned well, and mixed in with some rice, peas, and other goodies, and I practically scarfed it down. Mom called Aunt from the kitchen wall phone, this was 2000 or 2001, and told her all you had to do was put them in some damn seasoned rice. I still don't like most veggies by themselves, but there are a few I'll eat alone as long as they're cooked and seasoned well. I get it. I'm not a veggie guy myself either. And I understand that you need a certain amount of vegetables to keep from, whatever health problems come with just eating meat all the time and starches, which is kind of what I do. We've encouraged our kids to eat vegetables, but, to make them miss a meal, maybe. To make them miss multiple meals, never. So yeah, again, you got to pick and choose your battles, man. Me personally, I would have stomached down, the green beans to get to the spaghetti and meatballs. The chocolate cake I could take or leave, but the spaghetti and meatballs, I would ate just about anything to get to them. But yeah, we've all got our thing, man. Complain to the apartments after I do what you wanted? A few years ago, I was living in an apartment complex on the 3rd story with no balcony. At this point, I'd been living there for almost 4 years. The 3rd story was the only floor that connected to the other half of the building for fire code access to 2 staircases. There are some steps about halfway to the other side that I'd smoke cigarettes sitting on. I'd always take the butts with me and swept every couple days. I was a good neighbor. No noise, cat sit for the guy across from me, taught the old Russian guy how to use his appliances, helped people move furniture in and out, etc. A new couple moves in. After smoking a cigarette on those stairs in between, new neighbor guy comes to me and says, "Hey, sorry to bother you. Do you mind not smoking here? We can smell it in our apartment." I say, "Oh, I'm so sorry. Yeah, no problem. It won't happen again." We both go inside, and that night I walk down to the 1st floor each time I wanted to smoke. The next morning I get a call from the apartment complex saying they received a complaint that I was smoking on the stairs in the connecting walkway. I admit that I did do that and have since started going all the way down to the parking lot. He says, "Oh, you don't have to do that. Any stair landing area is allowed smoking, pretty much anywhere except where you were." Okay, thanks. I started smoking on the stair landing that forced them to walk past me and was closer to their apartment. Speaking to me as a person, I walked the 3 flights. Complained to the complex after I fixed the problem? I'm not going out of my way anymore. Edit. These are all outside door access apartments. I understand cigarette smoke and any kind of smoke to me that's not campfire related can be a little bit annoying when you're not a smoker, sometimes even if you are. At the same time, if the guy's following the rules, leave him alone. If you do feel the need to ask him, and you ask him nicely like that, don't call the apartment complex unless he keeps doing it. And even then, if he's within the rules, what are you going to do? This is also part of the reason that apartment complexes now force you to certain designated smoking areas that is not connected to the building at all, because like in the state of Maryland and complexes like that, you're supposed to be a certain number of feet away from other people's windows and doors. So yeah, it really kind of limits your options, except in your car or, you know, maybe your apartment if you got lucky enough to find one that's got smoking accommodations. I don't know. All right, guys. Hope you enjoyed the stories today, and I hope you all have a good weekend. Be sure to click all the little buttons down below to see what they do, share with friends and family, and we'll see you on the next one.